The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, Thursdays here at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. Hope you're doing well. We'll get to the starting five and some name changes in our starting five. That's all right. We'll shout you out shortly. Friday night football to tackle the topic of frostbite. And, some Nebraska thoughts, basketball and football. We'll get into it with Brandon Vogel. Vogel's going to join us from Counter Read in about 20 minutes or so, get his thoughts. Really good column from Vogel's on Counter Read with just the changing times we've all been accustomed to with NIL and the portal. Not so easy for many of the coaches. Some of the greats in basketball and football have walked away. And Vogue's had a nice story about it when it comes to Nebraska's place and what they have in Matt Rule. In hour two, we'll check in with Gary Barnett, Hall of Fame coach with Colorado and Northwestern. We'll check in with Barney and also Tom Shatel in hour two from the Omaha World Herald, that home field advantage topic he wrote about earlier in his column. We'll dive into it about Nebraska athletics. And then Burke's Best Bets. Danny Burke going to be with us at 5:40. Monster NBA game tonight. I know Elijah's got his eyes on. I'm not huge into the NBA until it's, the finals. But
this is likely, at least in my estimation, a preview of who we're going to see in the
Denver,
finals.
It's Boston. So we'll get there. Numbers to get in at 489-1240, 800-825-5865. Can email the show, Chris at HailVarsity.com. Can comment also on Twitter or Facebook and the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. Check that out. That's where you can watch the show on the stream at H Varsity Radio. Follow on Twitter, AM 590, Omaha's ESPN, where you can watch and follow the show on their Twitter handle, KFOR, Facebook, and Twitter. And, of course, hear us with our friends out in Hardy, Hastings, Grand Island, ESPN Superstation, Central Nebraska, and News Talk 900. So, quick update on the Husker women. They have been able to forge forward in opening round tournament action. It was, tied at 25. A offhanded rock fight, shall we say. Righty or lefty? Do you throw righty or lefty? You a right-hander?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we're all normal. Kidding to those lefties out there.
Not kidding.
So they were playing left-handed at 25 apiece at half, but Nebraska surged forward. That means they survive and see tomorrow.
I love how you made sure all of us in the room are righties before saying it was a left-handed
Well, let's just say you both get sick of me one day, and it's shiv time on live air.
I was going to go more with if one of us is left-handed, you see a mean left hook coming in.
Yeah, that too.
And you never see the left hook coming whenever you've been fighting righties your whole life, you know?
That's absolutely true.
The old southpaw.
Right, and if you're Terrence Crawford, you just fight either way and you destroy people. So shout out time as he has changed his name from the artist formerly known as KG Kids for Life. It is now Veggie Chili Loving KG Kids for Life.
How about the follow-up comment?
He is first and in all caps. So picture him shouting at parent-teacher conferences to those teachers that had maybe semi-positive reports towards his, the person at his parent-teacher conferences. Listen to this. For the first time, it's for real. I am first. Take that to all my teachers that told me I would not amount to anything. I may not have good credit, but I was first today. Veggie, chili, loving, KG Kids for Life. It's all right. With the credit thing, we do not judge. So he is first. Roger is present. He is headed home for lunch. You have Tuck that's in. Tuck says, what's up? I'm present and unaccounted for. Elijah is in. You also have a NASCAR Eric saying, what's up? Chuck is here. Chuck, good to have you. Brent is in. Whoop, whoop, says he. And Dion also says what's going on as well. Jeff checks in, and we'll take more of your comments as well. Tuck later on, right before the show starts, changed his name, the anti-soccer meat in everything Tuck, to respond to the veggie chili that dominated much of the stream yesterday.
And we're feeling for Tuck today. As he said, they have 2 inches of snow there on their way to 6 inches of snow.
Oh. Tuck, are you out in North Platte / further north and northwest in Brandon Vogel territory, Hemingford, Panhandle region? I was hoping no more snow in Nebraska, but that isn't the case.
The problem with that is once you get to March 7th, you're really riding that line of, is this March being in like a line, or is this now mid-March, you know? I fully believe in that old wives' tale, that March, I brought it up a couple times in the show, if it's in like a lamb, it will be out like a lion. Here in southeastern Nebraska, it's been pretty lamb-like to start March, which gets me concerned for the end of the month. But now you're at that point, a snowstorm on March 7th. Are you past
spring breaks next week?
Are you past the into March point at this point where you've already established that it's been like a lamb, or does that now qualify as March being in like a lion? It's the big questions that we have to ask ourselves.
The line of demarcation.
Yeah.
When does it count? I don't know, and really don't care. Just keep snow away. We'll deal with a little bad weather. I'm almost in Colorado, like 40 feet. Well, good for you. Anti-soccer, meat and everything Tuck. Well, Friday football, let's get there for a minute. And we're going to do a question of the day moving forward. And let me ask you this, and it pertains to the reality of frostbite. Either of you ever had frostbite?
No.
Me neither. I felt like I had it. There's been some Nebraska-Oklahoma games where it was so cold it took a while to get circulation / feel your feet. I'm thinking of Calvin Jones's winter in 1991, the Buffs-Nebraska game in 1990. We fast forward to the playoffs where maybe you didn't see it because you don't have Peacock, but the Chiefs and Dolphins game, you had many Chiefs fans, and I'm sorry to laugh out loud with this, who suffered frostbite at bitter cold temps. They needed to get amputated. And I think of Tom Coughlin about 20 years ago, the Giants, this was Eli's first Super Bowl run. Coughlin's got a stocking hat on, but it looks like he's been scalded by hot water on the bridge of his nose and his cheeks. He didn't have his face covered, and dude got frostbite on the sidelines at Lambeau, and the Giants won on the road. So you got to have a little macho factor and tough it out. The Chiefs let fans bring in cardboard to stand on to keep their feet warm. Carson's little sick Delta buddies, some of them went down to the Chiefs game for the Dolphins game. But the reality is you had the medical director at Grossman Burn Center at the Research Medical Center said 70% of patients referred for frostbite injuries suffered during that bitter cold January, now being advised to schedule amputations.
Oof. Oof.
I think the real question is, who's at fault here? Is it the NFL or is it the people who showed up to the game?
Listen, I don't want a world where you cancel the game because it's too cold.
Well, the Bills rescheduled because of snow.
Right, but there was massive amounts of snow. They couldn't clear the field, let alone the stands.
I know, but I didn't like that either, to be honest with you. I understood that one more.
You couldn't see.
I understood that one more.
You could not. I mean, you guys remember seeing footage of the Fog Bowl.
People are getting fingers amputated for showing up to a football game.
I thought this was football, Schmitty. I thought you played no matter what the weather was.
Thank you, and that's where I'm at. But the Buffalo game, the wind and the snow, there was no visibility. Period.
That's why you don't watch on TV, you listen on the radio.
But the guy calling the game could be lying to you more than usual.
Well, it's like the old baseball broadcast back in the 1930s where
swung on and hit, Ruth, another homer.
They couldn't, you guys have heard these stories, right? Where back in the 30s, a lot of teams couldn't afford to fly their hometown radio announcers out to the games or send them on the team bus or however they got to the games. So what they would do was they would be sitting back in the studio like we are right now, and they'd have a ticker tape going of what was happening in the baseball game, and they'd call the game as if they were there with that ticker tape, and then you have issues with the ticker tape where now the guys are just making stuff up on the fly because it's been 5 minutes since they've gotten an update from the ballpark.
And A-Rod's gone deep for the 8th time tonight.
Look at that girl over in right field catching a baseball from the right field. What a special moment here as we've reached a delay in the game. I mean, that's kind of what a Buffalo game where you can't see could remind you of. Just making stuff up.
My point is this. Will you, as a fan, reconsider, this is our question of the day, going to games after this story where 70% of the patients with the Chiefs-Dolphins games who attended, they are having to schedule amputations.
You may lose a finger, but you gain a memory for life.
Yeah, the game that was boring and I had to go to because I couldn't watch it on TV, and it cost me not only a medical bill, but a piece of myself.
I'm sorry, I'm not showing up to any Bears game where I got to lose a piece of my hand.
Even if it's a playoff or an NFC championship game?
Yes. I'm not amputating a part of my hand.
Fake fan. Ronnie Lott amputated a piece of his hand and came back in the game.
Ronnie Lott just said, just cut it off, man. He missed a play. He missed a play, but maybe that's why he's a Hall of Famer. I kind of joke about this, but that number is absurd. I mean,
I like my hands.
No, I don't blame you. I'm not. Listen, it's each to their own, but I'm just asking from a general fan standpoint. Someday, as you get a expanded college football schedule, maybe you're hosting in early December in Lincoln. If you're in the playoff, it could suck outside.
Well, I will say, I think I'm the only person here with experience of a December football game at Nebraska, because I was running the cameras back in 2020 when Minnesota came to Lincoln mid-December.
I walked from the press box to the single barrel to do the post game.
I was outside at 5 a.m. setting up my camera when it was like negative 20-degree wind chills outside. I could not feel my feet at the end of that game. Let me tell you what, was it worth it? Hell no, Nebraska lost that game. It was brutal.
Yeah. Well, they lost that game with 30 people traveling from Minnesota because they were all out with COVID.
One of my most brutal memories, but it was a memory, and it wouldn't have been a memory had I not been there.
Look, I'm going to go to a cold football game. I've been to cold football games here. I've been to the double doink game was freezing.
That was horrible.
We were at the second to top row of the stadium right next to the lake. That game was not warm by any means. But I'm not going to a Bears NFC Championship game where I got a risk of losing some of my fingers because of how damn cold it is outside.
Imagine telling the grandkids, though, hey, kids, you want to hear why I lost my
Grandpa,
pinky finger?
Why do you, when you wave I love story, you at me, why do you only have 4 fingers and no thumb, Grandpa?
Because I spent $500 to go watch the Bears lose in the NFC Championship game.
Missed the field goal. I'll say this. There are precautions. You can get a flask, but 2, you can get electric socks, you can get long johns, you can get gloves, you can get double gloves, you can get the hand warmer thing. I mean, folks who are of the hunting ilk, and I've never killed Bambi before, they go out in sub-zero weather all the time to go get their
Well, some of these people were also buying beers
deer
at this game, which was dumb, in my opinion. I feel like that didn't help
so
their kids.
they didn't have pain, or they were feeling no pain until
it just froze right as
woke
they
up with
opened.
the headache, and this hand I was gripping that frozen beer with went from bad to worse with frostbite.
Well, let's lay something out here. Frostbite does not occur in this weather if you take the proper precautions. I've gone camping. It wasn't that extreme, but I've gone camping in weather that got sub-zero at nighttime. It warmed up to like 15, 20 degrees during the daytime. With proper precautions, with proper clothing, you don't have to worry
People
about
go
this.
skiing all the time in sub-zero temps.
I know.
I'm saying it's a choice. Is there ever going to be a day where, as a Husker fan, you punt because the wind chill's too brutal?
I will take your cheap tickets if you want to sell them because it's too cold.
What's the amount? Because you said a certain percentage of people who suffered from frostbite have to be amputated or have to get that.
70%.
How many people is that like subtotal?
70%
of how many?
10? Is that 7 out of 10?
Yeah.
Is that 70 out of
70% of 5,000? 70% of
this story
100?
does not give me totals. I don't know how many people went to the hospital after the Chiefs-Dolphins game complaining of frostbite, dealing with frostbite.
Because I think that would be an interesting number to see.
I think it'd be great, but it doesn't have this Fox 4 Kansas City doesn't give me a number.
Gotcha.
Even if it's 7 out of 10 people. I mean, you had 3, and this isn't funny, but you had 3 fans die outside.
Yeah.
And that was not frostbite related.
Won't be going to the Bears game if that's the case.
Even in this new era of modern medicine where prosthetics are getting better and better by the year, it could reach a point where you might not even miss that pinky finger. You'll get a better robotic pinky finger somewhere down the road. We're in an era of modern advancement.
You
like
are
no
never
others.
going to convince me otherwise, Elijah, no matter how much BS you throw my way right now. This is, no.
Had to ask.
Good for you if you want to go.
I had to ask it. Say it's the mother of all matchups you want to see. Say it's Miami comes to Lincoln finally.
There is
in wintertime.
Connor and I
Florida
differ.
State.
If there's a game I want to see, the weather will not affect me in the slightest from going to go see that football game.
The weather will affect me if the temperature is below 0, and that will make me have second thoughts.
It's fair, and you're not alone there, dude. I mean, folks are, what's it worth to you? So
it's a cost-benefit analysis.
I'll run the post game from here. How about that?
Deal.
done.
Deal.
You got it. You can do the post
I
game,
spoke
brother.
too soon.
I'd rather lose a finger.
Wow.
Deal with
Don't tell the
another
bosses.
demoralizing loss and help do therapy with the great fans in Nebraska, or lose a finger.
Hey, you know
Hey,
what? I'd be
folks.
really warm doing it.
Elijah, the other Elijah, is asking. Maybe we are. We were just pimping him a little bit. Elijah's asking. I feel like Chris and Elijah are low-key trolling Connor on their willingness to lose life
certainly.
and limb for sports.
A little bit, but it's because I really don't think I'm going to lose a finger by going to a cold weather football game.
You will not go.
I'll be
shirtless.
smart. Yeah.
Brandon Vogel on the way with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Let's say hi to Brandon Vogel, Counter Read, counterread.com. And Vogues, we're getting towards the end of it. Big-time opportunity for Nebraska against Michigan. We'll see where the wheel spins for projected seedings after that. And then it's off to Indy for the Big Ten tournament. How you doing today, man? You gearing up for this March Madness?
I am. It's we had the start of the Big Ten women's tournament yesterday, and today was the first full day of that. So it's as good as the NCAA tournament. It is the kind of 2 weeks leading up to it, where you get into Thursday, Fridays of this week, and you can just wake up, start watching basketball at like 10 a.m. are pretty great as well.
And how about the Big Ten bringing back the pinwheel to the Big Ten tournament? They went away from it for a year, I should say.
That around the center court.
The fans revolted. They brought it back. I'll be curious to see what it looks like next year with 18 teams all represented in that pinwheel. But that's one of the better logos in college sports right now. So good to see them bring that back.
It is nice. It's it's an interesting logo that a lot of people have an attachment to when it comes to this Big Ten tournament. So I was happy to see its return.
Love the commercial, and I love the pinwheel that now starts at the Rose Bowl and makes its way to Piscataway. One of my favorites. Vogue's really interesting story, kind of the timeline of Saban and Bama and that 72 hours where Greg Byrne needed a replacement. Chris Lowe's story on ESPN. Your story today, your newsletter, kind of runs down Saban's retirement and just what guys from a certain era are really tired of dealing with right now. And to point out the details, we'll talk with Coach Barnett about this in a little bit, but you've got guys wondering how much playing time. That's not new. That's going to always be existent. But they're worried about playing time, and they're also worried about how much money am I going to get, and that is a reality in today's world. And Saban had enough and just said, you know what, I'm out. And he'll go, I don't know that he's going to take headgear, but he'll go hang out on College Game Day, and he may team up with Belichick for a Manning cast option. But all that being said, man, he's over the 2024 era of college football.
Yeah, it was an interesting story from Chris Lowe of ESPN. You know, when Saban announced his retirement, I think one of the quotes that came out was Nick Saban had a harder and harder time. He said this, had a harder and harder time telling those parents who said, well, you're going to be here in 4 years if my son decides to come play football for you. And he had a harder time answering yes to that. What this news story, which really kind of takes you into those 48-ish hours after Saban's retirement and before Alabama laid it on Kalen DeBoer, we hear a little bit more from Saban. And he talks about how, he was kind of disappointed in his players' reaction to the overtime loss against Michigan, and in the Rose Bowl just kind of wasn't some of the program values that I think he wanted to see, and combine that with just the craziness of college football's current offseason, where he was dealing with some of those questions that you mentioned. Saban at 72 years old decided, yeah, you know what, this is the time for me. But what stuck out to me from a Nebraska perspective is a lot of those things I think are what Rule's trying to do here. He's talked a lot about trying to be a little bit independent of the transfer portal. At a certain point in December, he said, hey, we have our own transfer portal because we didn't lose guys, which is true. But I guess if Nick Saban at Alabama, which had that thing running, even last year's team wasn't that strong at the start of the year, got there, beat Georgia, snapped a long winning streak for Georgia. Like, if he's feeling the brunt of, hey, maybe this approach that I have is just getting washed out by kind of the realities of today's game, what's the future of that approach for coaches who want to keep trying to do that, who are like, yeah, these things exist. The players have these new avenues, and that's great. But the way I'm trying to build it was kind of something that worked 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Brandon, as you look at the new era of college football, you've seen a couple of coaches that were near the top that have been shuffled down the coaching rankings, if you will, based on how they've performed since the portal has really come into prevalence, since NIL has really blown up in college football. I mean, Nick Saban was still leading college football playoff teams, but it wasn't that same dominance from Alabama that you'd come to expect. Clemson, after a couple years of what felt like a dynasty in the making, has since kind of regressed back and become a perennial top 25 team, but maybe not a team you expect in the playoff. You have a couple other teams. Georgia's really taken advantage of this new era of college football. They're the ones that come to mind first and foremost. What are, I guess, the signs of a coach or a coaching staff that's been able to embrace the new era of college football, take it in stride, and still get the most out of their team?
It's a good question. It's not what Dabo Swinney has done at Clemson, and as you mentioned, Clemson has fallen off from a perennial playoff team to, I think they've gone 9-4-ish the past 2 seasons, which is still pretty good, just down from what we've expected from Clemson of late. And Swinney has been one of those coaches who's been most out front, particularly on the transfer portal, about just saying how hey, this isn't something that I want to. This isn't how I build programs. Which, fair enough, you run the risk of getting left behind, I guess, and who knows? This could all change back to something more sensible, in the next couple of years. But for right now, you look at coaches like Lane Kiffin, who seems to be really doing well with just embracing that, the way that we did this 20, 30 years ago, it may not be the way anymore. And Kiffin has really steered into it. And he's also, I think, gotten Ole Miss's collective is one of the stronger ones out there, which is so strange when you think about this from the Saban perspective of, okay, he has these end of season meetings and players are like, well, how much NIL money can I get? What do you even say to that if you're a coach? Be like, well, I can try and get with the collective, and the collective can try and get you this much. But these college football coaches are used to controlling every aspect of their program, and they literally can't be involved in this piece of it. They can just kind of say, hey, this guy really needs this, or otherwise he might be in the portal. And it's up to other people to do it for you.
Is that kind of the benefit? I mean, Matt Rule being an NFL guy, you talk about Kiffin, he was a guy that was in the NFL for a little bit. Is that where that NFL experience can be helpful in the new era of college football?
I think it is right now, because Rule's NFL experience is so recent, and he jumped straight back into a college game that was pretty new on that front. I think you probably have a better sense about what keeps a guy in place, like on your roster, a guy that you want to keep, because in the NFL, depending on contract situations, et cetera, it really is. It can be, for the guy who's just trying to maximize earnings, it can be the highest bidder. And college football is even more unregulated than the NFL at this point right now. So finding those things that appeal to, or finding the players that are like, no, I'm here to be part of this, I think is probably an advantage that Rule may have had coming straight from the league.
Brandon Vogel's with us, counterread, counterread.com, at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. And that's where I was going, was the Rule factor, so to speak, this new era. How well positioned is Nebraska because of Rule?
Great minds think alike, Schmidt.
Well, I mean, the communication part, and if you're to speculate as to why Rule, his program, his culture is so appealing, why do you think guys like Polar Bear, Robinson want to stick and stay? Why does a true freshman 5-star want to jump in, maybe the next 5-star, so to speak? I mean, there's some obvious answers: winning, development, playing time, all that stuff. But you had the family tie with Dylan, which was huge, but he isn't the first 5-star they're going to keep going after, right? So what is it about Rule's plan that is so appealing in your opinion?
I mean, I think part of it right now is the opportunity. So for some of those guys you mentioned, Nash, Ty Robinson, recruited by an entirely different staff, the opportunity to kind of turn things around, I think has an appeal to some guys. At the time that Dylan Raiola committed to Georgia, I remember talking with you guys and being like, well, yeah, like, I mean, you just sign up and show up at Georgia and things are running and humming at a really high level. And that's got to have a broad appeal. I think there was a family connection there, but I think we found in interviews since then that the ability to be part of the group that hopefully turns Nebraska around had some appeal to Dylan as well. So I think early on you can get some people in the boat that way. Beyond that, if Nebraska has some success, and in some ways this, what I wrote about today with Saban is maybe like two concerns down the road. Like, Nebraska just needs to get to a point where it's winning and it's consistent, before it needs to worry about, maybe this approach is not a perfect fit for today's game. And I'm not saying it's not. It's just the Saban story made me question it a little bit. So ultimately, I think you keep trying to sell the, hey, we're gonna prepare you for your future, whatever that is. If you're somebody who wants to be a coach, maybe you're not NFL caliber talent right away coming out of high school, or you get to college and realize you're not. Like, we've got a guy on staff in Garrett McGuire who did exactly that at Baylor. We've got former NFL players on staff. Here's our track record. So I think it becomes that part of it. But you're looking for, I think, a specific kind of approach to a college career from guys who are 17, 18, and I didn't have a whole lot figured out at that point in terms of what I actually wanted. So it's a challenge.
Vogues, tell us about Counter Read. How can folks get signed up? What do they get?
Yeah, you can head over to counterread.com. That's a twice weekly Substack from myself and Aaron Sorensen. As you mentioned, our paid subscribers get 2 exclusive newsletters a week. We usually do 1 or 2 others for free throughout the week. So you can also sign up for a free account and check those out, see what we're up to there. But so far this week, we kind of previewed the Big Ten women's basketball tournament. I did some writing on Saban and how it relates to Nebraska and Rule, or in some cases how it doesn't. We usually do kind of a weekend recap to start the week off. So a lot of good stuff happening there.
Vogues will check in Saturday. Thank you much.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. There's Connor Clark. He was having
computer just got possessed. I don't know what just happened.
I don't know either, but we've had comments by many of Vogue's cover photo in the stream there, and we just need Vogues to send us an 8x10 black and white. Not that there was anything wrong with that cover photo, but let's just
wow.
Yeah,
fun.
but it was a younger picture of Vogue's. It was either in Bo's house or Scott Frost's house. One of the two is what Vogue's told us. So appreciate him jumping on. Danny was asking, does Vogue's approve of this photo? If you're on the radio here or stream, you're like, what are these yahoos talking about? We're Hail Varsity YouTube channel.
Check us out. Live stream it. Join the party. It's always a party in the comment section on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. So if you're tuning in every single day, you might as well join the party. Again, that's Hail Varsity on YouTube. Find the live stream every day from 4 to 6. You can also find the video version posted shortly after the show every single day. If you're not a fan of commercials, we get it. We cut the commercial breaks out for you on YouTube, and you can check it out there.
There are also options to, for sure, partake and frequent those folks kind enough to advertise with us. So let's reset here. We've talked about the Chiefs fans, and 70% have had to turn to amputation for that Miami Chiefs game. Would you still brave weather, or is there a line of demarcation where you say, nope, staying home, selling my seats? And I bring this up because someday Nebraska will have a home playoff game against a warm weather team that used to make it not fun, turn of the new year, presumably, in Memorial Stadium. That first round game is a home site, and you get a warm weather team someday in Memorial Stadium in December. I think you're going as a Nebraska fan, no matter if it's 38 below wind chill.
Here's a lot of people. I've seen this trend floated around on social media where you are and ask people, what would you give up for your team to make it to a Super Bowl, to make it to a college football playoff?
It's kind of our question of the day.
Would Husker fans take a 10% chance of having a finger amputated for Nebraska to make the college football playoff next year? If someone came up to you and said, hey...
There'd be a line of folks ready, and they'd provide the sharp object.
Would you do it without anesthesia? There's a real question.
It's got to be quick. No, we've turned into butcher radio.
I will say, for my purposes, being able to talk about the Huskers every single day on the radio, I will take a college football playoff appearance, just appearance, in exchange for a 10% chance at losing a finger.
Listen, it's one thing to have an appearance, but you don't want to get stomped like you did against Miami in the Rose Bowl. All right? Appearances are not all created equal. It's one thing to get there. It's another to get embarrassed on a national stage.
It's just a 10% chance of losing a finger.
Gotcha.
90% chance I don't lose a finger.
How about Friday night football? Can we rally behind that? We were talking cold temps. Well, it doesn't matter that you say no, because guess what? Fox Sports to broadcast college football games every Friday on the network per a source to The Athletic. And that means they're going to emanate games from the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the Mountain West. The first matchup still to be determined because for the TV schedule, it's got to coordinate with the other networks, and you may not know who and when till May. But I'm wondering, in this new Big Ten with Tony Petitti, will Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State be able to tell him to bleep off like they did to Commissioner Warren with the proposal of Friday nights? They said, no, we're not doing Friday night football. Iowa's been stuck on the road playing Friday night football. I think they killed Maryland a few years back. Nebraska's done it twice at Illinois. Nebraska had to do it at Rutgers. If you're in the upper echelon, you're going to be able to kind of control your schedule, I think, or you're more of an attractive Saturday, for sure, for the big noon. But what Fox wants to do is have that option to to be a Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of live coverage be the place to go. And I know Monday Night Football's with ESPN, but who's to say Fox didn't go after Monday night? The late game for CBS and Fox rotates. That's a monster. Not quite as good as NBC Sunday Night Football, the new Monday night, right? When it comes to viewership, it dominates. But there are so many properties, and the Pac-12's used to it. There's been a lot of Friday Night Football where Oregon's played, where SC's played. You've had the Pac-12 Conference Championship game forever on Friday nights, and out on the West Coast, they just drop it in. But I think there's major upheaval. At least there's a rotation here between the Mountain West, and there's rotation between the Big 12. So it's not always just going to be a Big Ten squad. So maybe three Big Ten teams a year. I liked Thursday Night Football, honestly. I always got a kick out of that. It was an ESPN National Showcase. That was cool. Friday night, so it's always high school to me. That sounds old and crusty. Forgive me, but I think the Friday night, man, it just screws your schedule up. You already do Black Friday. Nebraska and Iowa do that. It's a short week. It's end of the season. It's after a death march of a season. You need to you're good. You're taking one for the team during a holiday, and Nebraska's done it for 30-plus years. So they should be off the table, in my humble opinion, moving forward with any other stupid Friday night games.
I might be in the minority here because we're moving this direction. I've talked to enough people that say I'm wrong that I've accepted I'm in the minority opinion. We don't need football 7 days a week in the fall. Can we just make that clear? The NFL keeps on expanding and doing new games. Oh, we're Thursday night football, Monday night football. Here's a Friday night game, Saturday football. Can we get a break? Can I have a night to watch a movie or something during football season? We don't need football every single night. And I understand everybody loves football. I'm included in that category. But it's been traditional and it's worked well for a long time that Friday is for high school football
for years.
But it's Maction, so you're not you're not glued to it.
No,
exactly. Friday has been for high school football. Saturday has been for college football. Sunday and Monday has been for NFL, and you get a break Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to be able to get other things done, to be able to watch a movie, maybe to spend some time with your kids
Thursday.
For once.
Here's the other part, though.
I hate Thursday night football.
I'll say this. During the fall, selfishly, it's really cool, the 2 times and then the COVID year, where the weather was great deep into October, where, okay, you played Friday night, awesome, let's go throw beers and play golf. Saturday, watching football on your phone.
I think my opinion might change, and I kind of wish we had this while I was a student because I won't obviously be next fall. And I wonder if my opinion would change on Friday night games if we had one at home. I wonder what that would
be
look
an
like.
Amazing cluster.
It would be, but I don't know. Maybe it would be kind of like, because obviously, and you said it earlier, it's kind of a high school thing, but in high school you had your classes all day in anticipation up to this football game. I wonder if there would be kind of a similar feeling to that. Now, would I want Friday night every single week? Absolutely not. But I just one time to experience
the thing about a Husker football game, though, is it's usually an all-day experience for the fans. You get down there in the morning, you get your pregame going no matter what time the game starts. You turn it into an all-day event. You can't have that on a Friday. You got to go to work for 8 hours, then go try to make it to Husker game, get your pregame in.
Who says they're going to work for 8 hours? That's my thing.
Well, you're not working that Friday. You're not doing it. We'll wind down hour 1. Gary Barnett coming up. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. Make sure you find the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Give us a follow on Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Watch the show as we stream on the StreamYard and YouTube, Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Reminder, to get buckled up, 1 of every 3 fatal crashes in Nebraska involves an impaired driver. Why take chances if you drink or use other substances? Don't drive. Impaired driving is deceptively dangerous. A message from the NDOT, Highway Safety Office. Gary Barnett's 10 minutes away. We'll talk to Coach about this new football world that exists that really drove Saban out. We covered that with Brandon Vogel from Counter Reed around 4:25. We've talked amputees in Kansas City because of frostbite, and also dove into Fox's desire for permanent Friday night football among 3 conferences. I'm trying to figure out, David, and maybe you've moved on from it, but we're just kind of scrolling through some of the stream comments. And David says you changed the venue to warm cities for extreme cold weather games. And that's a great idea, David. But you want that gate since you're hosting as a home field spot for the college football playoff. If you're the higher seed but not a bye-worthy team. And I guess I've said a lot of dumb things over the years. We've got 2 decades worth. But this is probably the dumbest thing I've heard you say. Specifically about not worrying about wind chill, I think I'd be able to make it. I would have gone to Kansas City against the Dolphins and made it out okay without frostbite, is the point I'm making.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you are somebody who has lived in cold weather,
you're used to it.
It's not that you're.
You
never get used to weather like that.
I tried to get frostbite as a kid doing a paper route, so I wouldn't have to do it.
You tried?
Well, I wouldn't bundle up as much. I had those smoker gloves.
Yeah.
You know what the smoker gloves are?
No, this is just an interesting dive into the psyche of Chris Schmidt.
I was too young to work a normal job. You wanted to buy baseball cards as a fat asthmatic. So what happens? You get a paper route.
You try to get workers' comp. I had a buddy who
it didn't work.
I had a buddy, shout out to Kagan. He tore up a ligament in his knee working at Shields back in the day. And was on workers' comp for like 6 months. He fell off a ladder or something like that and tore up his knee.
Did he fall or did he jump?
Got 6 months of workers' comp until he was recovered enough to come back to work. Comes back to work and does it again. Got workers' comp again. Never worked. He was literally getting workers' comp from Shields 18 months without working a shift.
That's insane.
Shout out Kagan. He's doing well for himself now.
Oh yeah.
The dude was getting high school.
I will represent you. Put this around your neck when you face the jury. So
yeah, no. There's the hilarious.
Did they
picture.
not just blow him out?
No, you can't because he's injured.
But twice.
There's a hilarious picture the second time of him laying on the ground, holding his knee, waiting for the paramedics.
Jeez, you're laughing at the poor guy who took us.
I can laugh at him because he made so much money off of those knee injuries.
Well, plus you do it again right after you come back. How is that even possible?
I'm telling you, it was 2 or 3 shifts after he came back.
Matthew with a take here on the amputees from Kansas City. 100% the people whose fingers, 100% people losing fingers, couldn't legally drive or were probably wearing body paint.
He's not wrong.
They were not covered up. Coach Barnett, hour 2 on the way.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Gary Barnett with us, Hall of Fame coach, Colorado and Northwestern. Coach, thanks for the time. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. How about yourself? Things good there?
Yeah, it is. It is state tournament time in Lincoln. That means everyone from big parts and small parts of Nebraska here through all the many classes. There's been lots of points and laughs about the air quote out of town drivers, right? And roundabouts and one way streets. So but we're absolutely thrilled for the economy bump. Were you a big basketball guy? I know you did football. I know you did wrestling, but did you play high school hoops?
Yes, I did. I loved it, and I played hoops. I played City League till I was 53 years old. So, yeah, I loved basketball. I was, I was better after high school, actually.
Sure.
But I was like the sixth man in basketball. And so our coach didn't like football players, but he kept 3 of us every year just so we could take up some of the fouls for the other guys. And so, I had a couple really hot games, but for the most part, I was a sixth guy that came in and sort of roughed everybody up.
So help me out here. Was Chauncey Billups in Colorado when you were there?
Chauncey was there when I was there, when I just come to Colorado with Coach McCartney.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
But I've gotten to know Chauncey really well, and he's just been a great representative of Colorado and representative of the University of Colorado. So he's really a great guy and good family, and so he's been a great promoter for us.
Well, I ask that because a lot of times there's some hoops guys like the topical LeBron, right? He could go play in the back seven in the NFL, right? And I just wonder if there was any thought ever to ask Chauncey to jump on the old football team.
Well, that wasn't my role at that time, but there were some guys. We did recruit a tight end off of the basketball team. Now, that was under Coach McCartney. And there were lots of guys. There's a lot of corners playing, a lot of tight ends playing basketball, and a couple of defensive ends that you just love to have a chance at. But you have to have a really good relationship with a basketball coach. And really I did, but we didn't. I think we only got one guy, maybe two. And then we had some guys on our team that would go and walk on the basketball team. So it was, but there's a lot of athletes that, I'm just watching McKinley Wright, who's been a point guard for Colorado the last number of years. He's playing in the NBA now, but man, would he have been a great safety or corner. So, but it was always fun, and I always went to all the games.
Well, yet that defensive end / tight end, basketball player conversion to football that you see a lot of. I think of Antonio Gates as the primary Hall of Fame blueprint. Gary Barnett with us. Coach, what's your reaction to Chris Lowe's story this week and kind of the timeline, and then Saban's reaction to the world of college football that maybe was the straw that broke the camel's back with his retirement, and just how the mood has shifted? What'd you think of Lowe's story?
Well, first of all, I think there's part of that people need to understand, and that is, when he, like he said after the game when his players were mad and throwing helmets, and he said, we win with class, we lose with class. He was really disappointed. And then in player meetings, when the things that the players wanted to talk about was how much playing time was I going to get and how much are you going to pay me? And the coaches of Nick's age, which I'm right there, and many of us, we just didn't get into it with any of those kinds of expectations. We had a completely different impression of what college football was about and what we were doing as coaches. We all saw ourselves as teachers, and we're not equipped. We're not equipped in a lot of ways to deal with what's going on right now. And I think younger coaches, who have been exposed to it, and then younger coaches who, sooner or later, who have gotten NIL money and have gone through the portal, will be much more adept at handling this situation and wanting to be in it, because none of us our age, Nick's age, really ever envisioned that this was even possible. And, we had beaten into our heads that anything like that was illegal, and you do everything you can to avoid doing anything illegal or wrong. And so it's, I think it's a typical reaction by guys who are lifetime coaches who saw the relation and see the relationship thing being really important. I was thinking about this last night, and, players have you for 4 years or maybe 5 years. And so that's not, as they get to be 40 years old and 45 years old, that relationship is important to them, but not nearly as important as it is to coaches, because we have 2,000, maybe 3,000 kids for 4 years or 5 years. And every one of those kids were like our own children, our own sons. And so I think coaches have a much more deep-rooted appreciation for their players than necessarily players have for their coaches. And I get that. I really do, because I was a player. And so I don't have the same appreciation for my coaches that I had for my players. And I think that's what coaching has been about. It's not what it's about now, because you've got a business piece of it that you have to deal with. And most of us didn't grow up with that acumen. So it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise the way it went down. And I give Nick credit for being able to walk out when he wants to walk out, and when he thinks it's not what it's supposed to be. So
Gary Barnett's with us. Coach, that relationship part, it was something you just touched on. And as a player and as a coach, tell me what hit it off with you and a player for just beyond the 4 or 5 years. I mean, why and how did you try and forge and form that relationship? What made an impression on you, either early in your coaching career or playing career?
Well, I think, Chris, it's innate to teachers. It's just, you work with each player individually, and you've been in their homes. You know who they are. You know what they're about. You know what they need to become. You know what they want to become. And so you're trying to do your part to get them there. To this day, I still play golf with 4 of my high school players, and that are all 65 and 68 years old. We play a golf round. The high school I coached for, we have a cadet reunion down at the Air Force Academy, and all of us come back and play golf. And we're guys that I've coached for 11 years down there. In my case, I'm part of a foundation that helps former players here. You know what really has helped us, guys like me, is Facebook, because I get to watch pictures of their family. I get to wish them happy birthday. I get to see what they're doing, when they got their promotions. So it's great for me, and it's probably better for me than it is for them. So that's why coaches are a little reluctant to give up. You're only going to have guys maybe 1 or 2 years now. Man, you're going to miss that relationship. You're going to miss what I've been able to live with and for the last 40 years of my life. So, I just feel sorry for people who are going to miss that, because it's so important to us. And I think to some players it's important.
Well, it's why you got into it, to your point, the teaching.
The whole reason I got into it, yeah.
Coach, want to get your thoughts here on that player or development phase. And I ask this, Nebraska has got their Hard Knocks video that's coming out and has had one episode. It's Chasing 3 is the theme for Nebraska, with all the points that Nebraska fell short by just 3 several opportunities last year. And a lot of thoughts on Nash Hutmacher, the polar bear, and then Ty Robinson. Both those guys had really good seasons last year. They had really good moments. And talk a little bit about making that jump, Coach Barnett, from being a guy that contributes and makes a splash play here or there to becoming a game wrecker. It's a process, but you can identify it, can't you, in a guy? And I picked out the polar bear because he dropped 45 pounds to wrestle. So he'll be kind of a new body type at that nose spot next season.
Well, that goes into buy-in, and it ties also into the fact that they're there another year in the system and with a coach that knows them, rather than going in the portal and going somewhere else. I think it's a lot easier to have that kind of reaction and that type of growth if you're there in a system with the guys around you and the coaches that maybe didn't bring you there but are there to take you to the next level. It's a lot harder to do if you're jumping from one team to another and one set of coaches to another. Now, there's something to be said for getting an opportunity somewhere else that you're not going to get at your place. And that's, anyway, you feel that way. And so I understand there's a percentage of guys who only grow by making a change. But for the most part, the growth that is happening with what you're referring to there at Nebraska, it's because those guys bought into Coach Rule. They bought into the system. They bought into their teammates. They want to get better, and they're willing to do it. And there's a guy there that's with them every step and can help them. And it just happens. It happens when guys realize, and the light goes on, Chris. It isn't anything. You can't turn it on. It just goes on automatically with players. And it takes a year of watching and seeing what really good players look like and what great players and deciding what you really want to do. And then the switch goes on and you grow up, and all of a sudden you're going to do all the things you need to be. It's called going from childhood to adulthood. The day you become an adult is the day you take total responsibility for everything you do, everything you don't do, and how you react to the things that happen to you. And you don't know when that's going to come. Apples don't ripen at the same time. And so, but they have to be there on the tree in order to ripen.
Love that thought. Coach, with signing day here, you got early December now. It moves up away from the latter part of December. There's tabling a summer signing day in February, sticking with February. Do you like moving up signing day from December 22nd or whatever it's been to right after the conference title game?
Well, because I'm not in it anymore, I just have to read and listen to other people's reactions to it. Mm-hmm. And so I see a little bit of both. I mean, I sit back and I look at it now and say, why do you even have a signing date? Mm-hmm. Because, this used to be the biggest decision a kid made and his family. I mean, you were going to go to school to a place. You had to trust the coaches. You were going to be there for 4 or 5 years. You couldn't leave. So think what it went into a decision like that, as opposed to a decision like, you know what, if it doesn't work, it's fine. I'll go someplace else. And then I'll go someplace else. You don't get the same thought process. You don't get the same evaluation by the player and the parents. You don't get the same assessment of coaches and who's going to really treat you right or what's happened in a program. So I think it's going to be more off the cuff decisions. Spontaneity will be important when you make that decision. So I don't know. I'm not sure they need a signing date, but it's tough on coaches, but nobody really cares about the coaches, and I get it. So they care about the kids.
Gary Barnett's with us. Coach, your thought is Bill Belichick and maybe Nick Saban paired together must-see TV for you come Monday Night Football if they join part of the Manning cast or they have a spinoff. Is that going to interest you?
Probably not.
No?
No, I love those guys. I love both those guys, by the way. But, I don't know. Maybe. I don't watch a lot of Monday Night Football. My brain can't handle more than the college football season. So I'm sort of relieved on Monday.
Take a breath?
Take a breath, yeah. So, but there'll be a lot of people. They'll draw a lot of crowd. They'll draw a good crowd. That's already a pretty good production anyway, I think.
Oh, it's pretty fun. It's good stuff. Coach, you take care. You have a good weekend. Thanks for a few minutes today.
All right, Chris. Great being with you. Thanks.
There he is, Coach Barnett. You missed part of it or just got into a little bit of it. Podcast will be up with Coach Barnett, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for Gary Barnett. Interesting take and thoughts on the recruiting calendar and what we were talking about here with Coach Rule, with Brandon Vogel earlier, and just making that environment a situation you can live with as a college football coach. Right now, reminder to you, supernovas.com. Log on, get your season tickets, get your single game tickets, experience amazing volleyball with Supernovas, supernovas.com. Tom Shatel next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. We welcome in Tom Shatel with the Omaha World Herald at Tom Shatel, OWH, where you find him on Twitter. Tom, Nebraska, a important ball game Sunday against Michigan. Wanted to spend a little bit of time with you on just your observations this season with Nebraska, specifically their home court advantage. You've seen a lot of Nebraska basketball, and what do you think of the atmosphere and crowd this season as it pertains to Nebraska's real home court advantage?
Yeah, it's just gotten better and better. I mean, ever since the arena opened in 2014, I think fans really took to it. It's a cool place to watch a game. It's a great place to hang out. There are all kind of things to do after the game. If you give the fans a winning team, they're going to really embrace it, and I think that's what we've seen. They've been loyal. I mean, there's been a couple of years where maybe they didn't show up all the time, but they've really stuck by this team, and I think they've been rewarded the last 2 years. They've got a team that they hustle, they play hard, they do a lot of the little things, they share the ball, they play a lot of defense. I mean, these are things that get fans fired up, and I think the team and the fans have a sort of a back-and-forth relationship where they kind of lift each other up. And I noticed that last Sunday night against Rutgers. They were up most of the game, and the second half, Rutgers got within 10 or around 10, and the crowd immediately got jacked up. They started getting on the team. They started to just try to lift them up a little bit, and I think it worked. And I remember crowds back in the Devaney Center that would have, if they didn't head to the exits, they would have sat on their hands and just kind of fretted. So it's different. I think the arena has helped. Certainly, I think the last 2 years that the crowd identifies with the way these guys play.
I asked about your home court, and I know you had a really good column on that this week. I want to flip it over to football. How intense do you think Memorial Stadium is in comparison to PBA?
It's hard to tell because
it's a different sport, but still.
Well, it's hard to and then we're up in the press box. I don't get to hear the full effect of the noise up there, but there's so many more people. I don't think football is what it could be. I mean, I think it takes that kind of winning team, the connection with the way they play. I really think defense, hard work. Nebraskans relate to that, and they doing the little things, and being tough and never backing down, and that's what basketball has been the last 2 years. And so I think it looks to me like football is on its way to being that kind of team or program again. And it takes winning, and you get a guy like Real out there making plays and getting people fired up and sparking the crowd with nice passes and people who catch passes and people who score touchdowns and make plays on defense. These are things that add up. But I don't know if to me it's just different, Chris. I don't know if you can. But I've seen Memorial Stadium back in the day when it was just on fire. And I remember standing on the sidelines, one game with one of the national writers, and he just looked around at the people going crazy. This is unbelievable. There's no place like this. And so we've seen it in football. We just haven't seen it in a while.
And to your point, Tom, you got to have a team that's worth cheering for, I think, for fans to get out there. But I look at kind of what other teams think of the home field and the home court advantage for Nebraska. Just a couple of days ago, the video came out on Twitter of Zach Edey ranking Nebraska as the third best road environment in the Big Ten. You compare it over to football. I mean, we were at Big Ten Media Days last year, and those videos come out. The guys we talked to, people are ranking Ohio State, the horseshoe. You have Penn State, especially a wideout. People are putting Kinnick above Nebraska. I think the only person we talked to that had good things to say about Nebraska's road environment was Blake Corum.
Well, yeah, because they won by 3.
Yeah. And that game was, I mean, that's one of the only games I can remember in recent memory that reminded me of what it was like during the Pelini years, those raucous crowds whenever you have a good team.
It just doesn't get as unhinged like it used to, Tom, to your point.
I love Zach Edey saying that. It's an honest evaluations of the guy who got beat here. But that was telling us that the fans mattered. The fans had an impact on that game, and it's cool to hear that. I have to admit, the Michigan game was kind of funny to me because, Michigan, the football game, they took the air out of the game so fast. But I remember J.J. McCarthy after the game referencing the boneyard. It was just like, yeah, we really quieted the boneyard. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Nobody ever heard anybody talk about the boneyard before. And so but I love that he knew about it and he was aware of it. And Nebraska football, we forget what winning on a consistent level is like. The whole state is just a buzz. You can't, you can't describe. It's just everything is different. Everything's better when you win, and just the whole mood of the state, everything. And I think the crowd's better. There's more electricity in the stadium. I just think it just sounds different. So, hopefully very soon we'll get back to some of those feelings.
Do you need to get beer in the stadium, Tom, to get that crowd juiced up?
I don't think so. It's interesting to me. I try to pay attention to that at the basketball games, and maybe we'll do this a little bit at the Haymarket Park at some point. But basketball games, I look around, it's not a beer crowd. Yeah, I see a couple of guys walking around with a tall cup. It's more of like a popcorn crowd. I mean, people are drinking water and Diet Pepsi and popcorn. And that's kind of the deal there. Or maybe a slice of Bell's. It's not a heavy beer. I mean, I try to walk around and just observe stuff like that. And so I don't think football. I don't think people have to have it. I think certainly if there's a road game, you go to your neighborhood sports bar and people are watching the Huskers and having a beer. But I don't know if they have to have it at the football game. I'll be curious to see that there will be some that do. And if they create a sports bar atmosphere somewhere, maybe in the South Stadium or somewhere where, eventually you can watch other games, hang out, and maybe gamble on a game or two. Imagine that, right? But that's coming. I think people will probably be surprised how many people will sit inside and watch everything on TV. That's just kind of what we do now. But I don't see Memorial Stadium turning into a giant bar. I just don't. I think people are so into football. I think maybe they don't want to go stand in line. I don't know how much it's going to cost either. Not, some certainly will, but I don't think it's going to turn into a giant bar. I just don't see it. I think it's still going to be, especially when you start winning again, it's about the football. And I always said, it's great to have beer at games, but for people who tailgate and do things afterwards, use the 3 hours to kind of sober up. You don't need to go all the way through. Just keep going. Have one of those 12-hour shifts that I've seen before. But I don't think it'll be. I don't think football is going to be a beer event. I just don't see it.
Tom Shatel with us, Omaha World Herald. Tom, we'll get you out on this. And we started with hoops, want to end with hoops. And I know there's still work to do for Creighton and Nebraska. But as you see both teams, let's just say they're both in. And let's project right now. I know we don't have a matchup. We don't know the seeding. But just as you've measured both squads, do you expect a good run by Creighton this year because of their talent level? Do you expect the breakthrough run? Is the team made up of enough options for Fred and company to get that coveted first win?
Yeah, it's about the matchups. We'll just have to know on St. Patrick's Day. I don't think seeds matter. I think it's about matchups. I expect Creighton to be like a 3, a very solid 3 seed. I think Nebraska, I've seen 9. I don't believe 9. I think their 10 is probably a better number for them. Please beat Michigan Sunday. Don't lose that game. That's the one that could be a real splotch on the resume. I think they still get in, but just don't try and do that. But I think Creighton, depending on matchups, I think that they're a Sweet 16 level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe they're Final Four anymore. I think they're the lack of bench. They're not as athletic as they were last year. I think that hurts that. If you just get on the roll, the NCAA tournament is about making shots.
Mm-hmm.
And if, nobody makes more shots than those guys if they get hot. So I kind of think they're a Sweet 16 level. And I think Nebraska, I think you don't want a team that is going to press them. They don't have a really pure point guard, and they're handling the ball sometimes. I don't think you want that. But generally, I think they're a team that has a lot of answers. They can play big or small. They have a lot of guys that can make shots. There are a lot of guys who like to rebound and play defense. I think this is a team that is equipped to win a game as any I've seen. Nebraska. So they just got to go do it. And then you're talking about a run. Well, if you're 8 or 9 seed, you're going to run into UConn or Houston or Tennessee or I don't know they'd be Purdue, but you would want to try that again. So I think a run would be better served as maybe a 10. And I think if they're 10, then the odds go up. Not maybe necessarily great. Odds go up of them playing in Omaha because Iowa State's going to be a 2, and they're going to be here. KU is right at the 3. They're going to be here. But I think you get into that 10-7, 2, you have a little better shot at it. But it's just fun. I think Hoyer's experience in the tournament is going to help.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't had a coach like him who has been to like a Sweet 16. He's won tournament games as a player and a coach. He knows the approach. I think there's going to be a lot to be said for that.
Tom Shatel with us, Omaha World Herald. Tom, you take care. Always appreciate the time, man. Good to spend a few minutes with you.
Hey, guys, good to see you.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back to you, it's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark, the pride of Chicago, Burke's Best Bets. Daddy Burke with us at Daddy Burke 5.
Danny, show us the hat. What hat you rocking?
What do you got going here? If you're watching,
we got a little Callaway action going on here. So get ready for the golf season, fellas. We got to get that going. I didn't have enough time to get my hair all acclimated for the show, so apologies. Following your suit and repping the Caps today, boys.
Hey, the best hats in radio we've been called, which is not much to say, but it's something. I'll take that. We'll put that one on my gravestone someday.
A lot of things you could be called in radio, and you'll run with the best hat moniker, which is fine. Burksbeat.com. Log on to Daddy's site. Check out his work when it comes to gaming. And some of the matchups, ongoing matchups, all pro and college sports, and of course his podcast, Burke's Beat, as well.
And if you follow him on Twitter, Danny, I see you occasionally put your picks up. We'll get into your full picks here in a second, but you have to explain right off the top of this one. You taking the Pistons tonight?
Yeah, how about it? I did not think we'd end up in a position this year I'd be taking Detroit.
1-800.
I look at these games on ESPN before I do the full breakdown, and I kind of get a look in my mind, and I'm going, which games are going to draw some interest? And oddly enough, the Pistons did crack that list because of the situational spot here against the Brooklyn Nets, a team that is really not playing inspired whatsoever, and they're missing a plethora of talent heading into this game. Just to name a few, Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, not that Ben Simmons was playing, but we now know that he's out for the season, and missing a couple other guys. And Detroit, young, feisty team, still trying to play to show that they can be a competitive bunch. Again, you have this younger group that still wants to showcase their talent. Brooklyn's been in a little bit of a tougher scheduling spot, so I'll take 2 in the hook with Detroit here, a team that while on paper atrocious, still playing fairly hard and been covering the number pretty decently the last 10 to 20 games.
Daddy, we've got some fight props we need from you in a moment. We got Boston, Denver tonight, NBA. Mm-hmm. I need to know an early prop for you. Over under touchdown passes for Dylan Raiola. Over under touchdown passes for Heinrich Harburg.
And maybe
over under for Danny Kaler.
And maybe more importantly with those, over under interceptions by Husker quarterbacks next year.
Oh my goodness. The interceptions, geez, let me think about that.
I go 17 and a half total.
You rose it up. You went from 14 to 15 to 17 there in about 5 seconds.
Well, I'm saying if you're down to 3 quarterbacks, if you got to go quarterback merry-go-round, you're going to have some drop-off, presumably.
Yeah, 17 and a half. I don't mind that number, actually, Schmitty. My first thought would actually be to go to the over, but we also have to come to the realization that we could have some competent quarterback play here at Lincoln. So I think I actually, with that sense, assuming everybody would stay healthy in my mind, and again, that's a huge assumption, and that's why it's a gamble in the first place, I would lean a little toward the under. Again, an initial thought is over for sure, but when you actually take the time to kind of, dissect everything, if you want to not put as much pressure on the young quarterback in Raiola, you don't want to dial anything up that's too crazy, and that'll probably come toward the latter half of the season. But yeah, I think I'd actually go with the under if 17 in the hook is where the number's at.
I think 17 in the hook's the touchdown number too.
Yeah.
Total touchdowns by Nebraska quarterbacks?
I think I'd go over on that if it was at 17 and a half. Yeah. Yeah, I would have a lot more confidence, I think, in the touchdown than I would with the interceptions, too, just because it's a little dicey based on those injuries in itself and who's going to be quarterback if it wasn't going to be Raiola. So, yeah, definitely more confidence in the touchdowns with going to the over if it's set there.
I think I personally would set it 20 and a half touchdowns from the Husker quarterbacks next year, 16 and a half or 17 and a half on the pick, somewhere in there. Your number was pretty good to lead it off. That's where I'm sitting at. We'll see what Vegas puts it at. And Danny, another thing we'll see what Vegas puts it at is a couple of fights to talk about. Let's start it off with the one that was announced today. Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Have you seen any early lines? Where are you leaning?
How can we handicap any Paul fights, right? I mean, are they actually legit? Are they actually true fights? You got to think they're rigged to some sort of degree, right? I mean, I don't like to bet boxing whatsoever because everybody complains about what happens behind the scenes, but especially when it's someone like Jake Paul, I absolutely don't want to get involved with it. The time to do it was right away when everybody hated him and was fading him just out of principle, and you could still get relatively affordable prices, but now they're just completely overhauled on his side, and he wins every fight. So, I mean, this one, again, it's very entertaining and you kind of want to watch it. But again, it comes down to the principle. Am I actually going to pay this money to watch this clown act? Probably not. I'll just get the highlights later, some kind of stream like everybody else does. Look, Paul's going to find a way to win, right? I mean,
against Tyson?
Tyson's just grabbing money.
He's old.
But again, think how old he is, right? He could barely walk a couple years ago, Tyson.
Dude, Tyson... Fellas, you guys are way too young, and I envy you. But even if Tyson's half interested, he'll murder the guy.
No, I don't.
But that's the issue, Schmidt, is that it's not taken seriously, and he's getting an X amount of money to go a certain amount of rounds.
He may get a bonus to kill the guy.
Reputation-wise, it's going to be a decision, and they're going to give it to Paul. Is probably how it's going to end because you don't want to completely destroy the guy in Tyson, and his lasting image in a ring is going to be him getting knocked out by Paul. So it's going to be one of the, it's not like Floyd Mayweather against Logan Paul because Floyd can actually still move. Tyson, again, he could barely walk 2 years ago.
His lasting image is Lennox Lewis just murdering him. I mean, but so, his image right now is knocking out Galifianakis. God, that sucked. So
you're right, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think Tyson still got some umph in him. He's not. I would 60. Agree. If he trains for it, he'll kill it. I want to. I'll let Elijah get it or illegally get it. And
the thing to me, if the fight makes it out of the first round, I just don't bet on a 60-year-old to be able to hang with a 20-something-year-old.
Right, exactly. If it's like a true fight, the conditioning has to be the biggest discrepancy there.
What do you say about a potential fight between Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith? This has been thrown around. Apparently these two are beefing behind the scenes. Who do you like?
McAfee all day.
Yeah, it's got to be McAfee, right? I mean, even Stephen A in his prime, McAfee's just, look, he was in the NFL, even though he was a punter, you still got to be an absolute dog to go out there. Have you seen some of the highlights where he took down some of those returners? I mean,
one of them was a Denver Bronco.
He played at West Virginia. You know, he's wearing tank tops left and right for a reason. He's got some mass there and some muscle. So McAfee for sure.
Let it be known, Danny said mass. Danny said mass with an M. Yeah.
Well, we need to get Schmidt there, in studio with the same kind of apparel, right?
Yeah.
That's. I know you were
for the whole show.
You were prepping up some of the weight loss and everything, Schmidt. Which, by the way, awesome job. But how to showcase it better than showing off the guns, baby?
Yeah, we're a non-NRA household, at least right now. So,
no, we should win the Hail Varsity Radio merch.
The merch is awesome.
Yeah, we'll have that.
Can we
for
pimp
you.
that tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll pimp that tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe we got to get a muscle shirt on there. Danny, before we get you out, though, about 30 seconds. Nuggets, Celtics. Nuggets are favored by 1 tonight. 9 o'clock matchup on TNT. What do you like? 30 seconds.
Yeah, look, I mean, Jaylen Brown's questionable. I'm kind of assuming he's going to play unless some other news has been propped up as of late. I'm going to lean with Denver here in this spot. They took care of business on the road against Boston. These are the type of games they get up for. Denver, in my mind, still the best team in the association. Love Boston, but this is a spot Denver will be ready to get rowdy for, especially after losing to the Suns. So I would look at the Nuggets.
Danny Burke, burksbeat.com. Read him, follow him at Danny Burke 5. Thanks, Danny.
You bet, guys. Take care.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Thursday, Hail Varsity powered by Cornhead Lager. Big thanks to Danny Burke. You're locked in for that Nuggets Celtics tonight, I assume.
I will be. I need to figure out how I'm going to both watch that game. Excuse me. Ugh. Heartburn.
Acid reflux?
Yeah,
or did you
good.
swallow a bug?
No, that was acid reflux. We got the Tums in there still?
Connor's reaching for product placement right now.
Elijah's favorite snack?
Those are the off-brand, so I think we're good to pimp those. I'm going to need one of those after the show. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to both watch the Nuggets game and get a workout in tonight. It's leg day, and there's never any juice for leg day. I'm going to be on my couch
plenty
tonight.
of juice for that game.
And that's the problem. How do I get the juice from that game transitioned over to a leg day? I don't know. I'm going to have to figure that one out.
Junior sent me a reel one time of Gruden just losing his mind in a team meeting. And the caption was, this guy doesn't skip leg day. just goes nuts. So shout out to Black Hills Brennan. Bachelor party weekend will commence tomorrow. Woohoo. He's going to the Summit League tournament and Top Golf. Good for you, Brennan. That is awesome. Went up to South Dakota who was it? Went up with Garth 100 years ago during a Christmas break, but it was University of South Dakota against UNO. So both those teams played one another. That's when Coach Craig Smith, now at Utah, was coaching the Yotes, and no, that's a good time. Good for you, and good for you, Brennan. We need an update tomorrow if you can on Bachelor Party. We may have to get Brennan the link.
Oh,
just a live, non-swearing report from the bachelor party. Doesn't have to be 1,000% sober, but we just can't.
It's got to be
get
clean.
Him or us into trouble.
It's got to be clean.
So think about that, Brennan.
We have gotten the invite. I still have not responded to the invite to the wedding, Schmidt. We got to get the invite. I think we got to stay in Deadwood, right?
I know. We're saying that we need to go to Brennan's wedding. We also need to cause a rain delay the first day or two of the College World Series.
The thing is, we could.
You might get that anyway, to be honest.
We could get up really early on a Saturday morning and drive up to South Dakota, make it to the wedding, hit the casino that night, make it back on a Sunday, not even miss any shows.
No, I don't think. Well, we need to do a show from Brennan's. We need to do a show from Deadwood.
Oh, yeah.
The Friday show.
It's the first week of College World Series. We got to figure that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will talk to Sasha.
We will talk to Mother Nature and get that figured out.
Absolutely.
He's got the best contacts. I hear he's got Mother Nature saved in his phone. Mm-hmm. Call anytime he wants.
It's not titled
Father
Mother
Time
Nature.
in there too, or no?
It's not titled Mother Nature. Connor, what do you got rocking tonight?
Oh, just, Hanging out, same old, getting ready for spring break.
Can't you going anywhere?
Enough. I am. I'm going to Galveston, Texas with a couple of friends.
Are you okay? Will you do a live check-in? Sunburnt?
25% sober?
You know what? Honestly, if Nebraska secures the double bye, which it looks like they will, maybe that Friday could be fun.
Okay.
So we could maybe do a little pre-recorded thing, because I don't know what time they would play at, but
I don't know.
That could be cool.
I think if they're a 3 seed, they play at like 9 p.m.
Yeah, I would have to look.
Uh-huh. I will not.
Connor's like 9 p.m. No chance of maybe sober.
Well, yeah.
I will not. I can't tell you about my spring break experience.
Mine was Oxford, Mississippi. Need I say more?
Well, back at 4 tomorrow. Talk to you soon. Thanks.